I'm your host, Riem Labidin, and you are listening to Tic Tac Podcast.
Hello, my name is Eslam Hindawy. I'm an engineering manager. I like to build software, and I would like to share my journey with you today.
Welcome, Islam, to Tic Tac Podcast. I'm happy to have you today.
Thanks, Wayam. I'm happy to be here as well.
Tell us more about you. What are your hobbies? And tell us some fun facts about you so we can break the ice with the audience.
Yeah, sure. My hobbies, basically, I'm into sports. I like to do triathlon. That's swimming, cycling, and running. And this basically keeps me busy most of the time, like outside work. And yeah, other than that, I like to also build software. So on my free time, I like also to have some side projects and try out new things. And also I like to do traveling. Whenever there is a chance, I just try to get out there and visit another city or another country, exploring different countries and cultures and stuff. And fun fact about me, this actually I usually share it with people and sometimes they are surprised. So I'm not into watching series like TV series at all. So I'm usually the guy when there's a group talking about the last season of, I don't know, this TV show or that TV show or how it went. I'm usually the one that have no idea what are they talking about.
I can relate. Quite similar, and I think it's very nice that you have this kind of hobbies that you can go outside because the nature of this job is staying long, sitting, etc. So it's nice in your free time you move and you go traveling and exploring the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It keeps the balance.
Yeah. And how did you start? Like your first step to figure out that you want to choose this career path? Was it your early environment shaped your interest to technology, or is there another story?
I think this started maybe in high school or primary school, where I come from. I was basically interested in computers in general, and I had a friend. I remember he was a little bit more experienced in computers, and yeah, we would go maybe to internet cafes back then and play some games, network games, and stuff. I come from Egypt originally. Back at the time, the internet was not that much available everywhere, and there was no streaming or things like Netflix. So yeah, we used to also just want to exchange games or movies. We used to carry like the hard disks, take them out of the computer, and then move with them. And yeah, it was like interesting for me to open also the computer, the case, and take out the hard disk. Yeah, I also was fascinated by, okay, this machine, how it works. And I also tried to learn a bit more about how can I fix something when it breaks so that I don't just every time go to the maintenance shop to fix it. And then, yeah, at this time, the internet was just starting to come around and it was for me quite interesting. That what made me then decide to study computer science.
So your curiosity led you to this path, like about how things work and to explore more about them.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of putting it. I was just like fascinated by this, and later when I finished like high school and I have to decide, okay, what to study, it kind of came natural to me that, okay, this is the thing that I want to study and work with.
I see. You directly picked computer science, or did it change later?
No, I started with computer science. That's the general area of study. And if I remember correctly, like we study general stuff for the first 2 years, things like math, statistics, databases, like some general stuff in computing and some logic, electronics and stuff like this. And then there was like specialization. Back in the time, there was computer science as a specialization. There was something related more to networks and something related to statistics and analysis. Forgot now there was a fourth one, but I felt more like, okay, I like computer science, I like programming, I like software development. And this is where I ended up with then for the next couple of years in the college.
Cool. And then did you go through different internships or directly you looked for your first job? How was it?
Yeah, I did an internship. I think I was still in my third year. Over the summer, I went to a small company. It was actually for me the first time that I kind of get professional experience. And I was lucky there also at this time because it was like a really small company. So there was only one person that is doing software development. And I was then the one helping him out. And yeah, I got to go to an office, like, so yeah, that was like first thing into professional development. And I also remember it was really exciting to like not work on just college project or something like studying, but more, okay, we want to implement. I think at this time we were building like a website for some school so that they can, I don't know, announce the courses and students would register to get the studying material and things like this. And yeah, it was really interesting to get into this and see how actually software is being built and hosted and delivered. So this was in my third year. And then, yeah, after I finished studying, I basically started as a software engineer. I got a job while I was still like in the last months of study. I also started going into interviews and I landed basically a job as a software engineer.
Before asking about the first job, your internship was a full stack developer or were you already focused on a specific direction?
Yeah, back at this time, those terms were not really there. But it was both. It was backend. We were using like a Java-based application framework that you can use to build applications. And I was then doing the backend and the front end as well.
Yeah, the people who get graduated, they can be confused whether they follow that path, like everything related to software, or the management part, like product management, etc., or DevOps, or machine learning or AI. There are different options, and especially nowadays, more than at that time before. That's why I was interested how you figured out that you wanted that way, but it seems that it was like there's no many options at that time. It's just like, okay, you have to work on both, and your first job was the same, right?
My first job was mainly it drifted into backend because just the nature of the projects that we're building at this time didn't have much front end. But nowadays there is lots of things that one can do and knowledge is out there. There's the internet, there's AI actually also for finding out about how stuff works. So I think it's the choice is harder, definitely nowadays. But for me, I'm more leaning towards if you're not sure what you want to do, just start by doing something. So it doesn't really matter, like just maybe take the first opportunity that comes. If it's front end, back end, machine learning, data, whatever, just start doing something. And I think the more that one starts to work with something, they would start to build their knowledge about what they don't know. The more you work and try things out, the more you know about, okay, what is the things that you like and what not. And I think by time it will come naturally to you that, okay, this area is something that you feel you're good at, something that you feel at the end of the day, you're proud of what you did, you're satisfied with your work. And this is then basically the area that you should continue working in.
It's a really good point. And what were your challenges that you have faced during your first job?
I mean, in the beginning, the challenges were mainly about technical stuff. So how can I implement this thing, or there's a new technology that I have to learn, and how can I learn it? How can I make sure that I'm doing things correct? Maybe in a small project, you don't really care about things like scalability or security or performance. But when you start working in bigger projects, then those things become important. So I think the challenges mainly were how to increase my knowledge, how to get better at building software. Yeah, also when you start working and you start then working in a team with different people, you also then see that, okay, there's challenges like how do you work together with others, how it's not just like yourself that you were just doing whatever you want and that's it. But now, okay, there are other people's, there are different opinions. How can you consolidate those opinions? How can you maybe get into discussions, things like this? So yeah, those were like the challenges for me to learn about this and navigate basically the way in the work environment.
Was it a big company or first job?
It was like a medium company. So yeah, in terms of size, maybe around 100, 200. And I think I was also lucky to have really good managers and mentors there. I think this is also something really important throughout the career, but I think especially when one is starting, I think it's also good to like do your homework as well. I see it quite sometimes that people don't like to put effort and just would like to get answers easily. And this it doesn't really work in progressing yourself because sometimes you just need to go through the process of exploring, of failing, of trying out. And then when you're stuck or you need help, then you go. But if you don't go through this process, then you kind of become really dependent on your mentor and you cannot go forward on your own.
Yeah, that's true. When starting your journey, is there a learning experience that you would like to share?
One of the experiences, I think I was pretty lucky to learn it early in my career. This was, maybe a couple of years after I started working. We had a project and some stuff went wrong when we were delivering. So we were like releasing some big changes and things went wrong. So there were some troubles in the system and we had to work because it was like a mission critical application for the client. So we had to work longer hours in the evening, in the weekends in order to get the system working again. Eventually, work-wise, everything went well. So the system was up again. And also the client, after kind of losing trust in us, they gained trust because they saw that, okay, we could deliver and we got more and more projects out of it. But actually what I learned that this really had an effect on me, like mentally and stress wise. And I had a learning in this situation that it's kind of everyone would like to say it like they have a credit of capacity to withstand hard conditions in a job. And one should use this credit wisely because when the credit ends, you would not want to work in this company or in this project anymore, even though that it could be like a good project afterwards and things might get better, but you used your credit of withstanding those conditions. And that one should also make sure that they are taking care of their mental health, that they are not stressing or burning out in their job. I think it's important. And I was lucky to learn this early on to always make sure that still the job is important and work is important, but also you're doing things outside of your job. You have your life, you have your family, friends, and it's also important to focus on this and try to separate between both.
Yeah. Like, okay, we do our best at work, but also we shouldn't be hard on ourselves and try to balance between this. It's very, very important.
Yeah, definitely.
Then, how did you progress in your career?
I basically started as a software engineer and I was working in different projects. One point of time, I kind of switched a little bit to product work. I did this for a year and then was kind of working mainly with technology and moving from a junior engineer to a senior. And then I figured out that, okay, I want to get more into the management career path. So I switched then to be like an engineering manager or a team lead. So I switched to get into this path. And I'm still doing this.
Your different roles were on the same company or it was like through different companies?
And basically the progress from junior to senior and then to team lead in the beginning was more or less at the same company. And then I moved to another company. And at this time, I applied as engineering manager or team lead. All of this was I was still back in my home country in Egypt. And then I moved to Germany and I started like as software engineer and I kind of took the same path again. This time was like a mid-level software engineer to a senior. And then I also switched to the management track again.
You switched your role because you found like a convenient job with that role, or why did you decide to go back to software engineering instead of continuing like what you were doing?
That's a good question. For me, it was like when you're moving between different countries and different cultures, there is different expectations from the companies in what this role is. So sometimes like with the technical stuff, it's the same, but when you get into the management things or also the scale of the companies is different. So for me, I figured out that, okay, I think I still need to learn how things work in other country in Germany at this time. So yeah, I wanted also to kind of start working again as a software engineer to see how things work, see how work is done in the company and how does management work and how does like team work at this time.
Yeah, I think it's a wise decision and it makes sense. What were the challenges that you have faced when you moved here?
Definitely, I would say our differences in terms of the work culture. For example, for me, the feedback culture was something that is different between countries and cultures. So some cultures, it's totally fine to be honest and like give honest feedback. And this doesn't really hurt like the emotions or the feelings of someone because this is completely normal and completely fine. But in some cultures, it's not the case. If you, especially if it's like a hard feedback, yeah, it needs to be done in a certain way. So yeah, this is like one of the things for me that was quite different and I got to get used to it. There's also, I don't know if I can call it like multitasking or something like this. So this is also something that I found different. Like, for example, in Egypt, it's totally fine to do like multitasks, like you can work on different things at the same time and constantly switching between them. But what I found in Germany, it's like the opposite. When you're looking into this, it's not a rule. It's not like everyone is doing this, but that's like the majority not really working in multitasking and having different things at the same time, but really focus on one thing, finish it, and then move to the next one. And yeah, the language also for me was one of the obstacles. Luckily, at this time, I used to work in English, not in German. But on top of that, also, I did learn German. And in order to understand how things are working, how things are going on, and knowing German would be helpful in your job to communicate with someone or to understand something.
Yeah.
So that was also one of the challenges.
When you started there, was there guidance or did you try to figure things out on your own mostly? Because I always think that in the beginning of every new chapter, guidance is very important.
Yeah, so definitely I agree with you. There was guidance in the company, like from people managers or engineering managers would help not only in the technical stuff, but also in order to develop you in terms of communication, time management, planning, all those kind of skills that you also need to do in the work. And luckily, there were really lots of very smart and brilliant people that one could learn from. And I also would use the time and go and ask people. Reaching out also for help was one of the things that helped me in order to learn.
So you stayed long working at this company, and did you go through promotion, and how did you grow and develop in this company?
I worked with this company for quite some time, so maybe 5 or 6 years. And I went through a promotion, like at this time, software engineer to senior software engineer. Then I switched also inside this company to be an engineering manager.
Maybe people would be interested to know about how they negotiate, for example, about promotion, especially if someone is working a couple of years and they want to explore the opportunities, etc. Can you share some tips with people?
Yeah, sure. That's actually a great question. I had to go not to negotiation, but I think what helps there is to know the expectations. If you are a junior or a mid-level and you want to be promoted to the next level, you should not expect that you would be promoted just because you work longer in this role or you want to get more money because you want to travel or whatever, but it should be because you basically fulfill the expectation of the next role. Most of the times it would not be fully, but you basically need to prove that you have the potential to go to the next step, and you should clarify the expectation then with your manager and ask for feedback, ask for what am I missing to get to the next step. And yeah, usually the companies, it depends on the size of the company, but the bigger the company gets, the more institutionalized this thing gets. So there would be like a career framework probably at the company where expectations are kind of clear in a way from each level, and you can always then go back to this framework and find out, okay, what are you missing, and try to work on this. So that would be my tip. Basically, ask for the expectation, ask for feedback, do self-evaluation, do self-reflection, see where you're standing, what you're missing, and work on achieving this.
Yeah, good tips. And like, is there something that helped you to develop your skills? Did you go through different trainings? Is there like something to guide people how to progress in their career?
There are different things. So there is learning the skills on the job, and there is going to seeing like trainings or maybe conferences or books, courses, like learning from the experts basically, and seeking out professional help. And nowadays, I think also things are really available generally, and you can do lots of trainings, courses for free or for really not that much. So you can also do this on your own. And there's also another thing that you can use is like networking. So reaching out to maybe different people in the same role or another role, asking for help, maybe reaching out to communities, professionals in this. I think this also is something that would help people develop. So networking, connecting with others, learning from them. Yeah, just being curious. I think this also helps, and trying to explore things.
Yeah, and it's the key. Like, I think that you already have this curiosity that leads you towards growth and moving forward in your career. And after this job, how did you progress?
I moved to another company, which is a startup, so a smaller company, but I also moved as an engineering manager.
Can you explain what is the role engineering manager? What are your responsibilities?
Yeah, I think if you ask 5 different people about this, you would get 6 answers probably. So it's quite different from a company to another, and from a big company to a startup. Also, there are differences, but usually there are some common stuff. So as an engineering manager, a big part of your work would be focusing on the people in the team, helping them to grow, help mentoring, coaching. Then there would be also a part focusing on the technology or the engineering part. So here it would differ from a company to another. Some engineering managers would be hands-on, and some would not be that much hands-on in terms of like coding or architecture or programming. And there's also a part of it is about the process, how the team works, making sure that the team is delivering and removing like roadblocks, figuring out maybe bottlenecks in how we work and fixing them, focusing on the process. And also it depends, but sometimes you would be involved in the product. So it could be working with product manager or business analyst or whoever is more concerned with the product to kind of bridge the gap between the features and the product language and the tech language, and figuring out that, okay, solutions to work out this thing, and basically doing this together with the team, helping people to do this and connecting different functions together. So it's like you're doing a bit of everything. I think the smaller the company is, the more that you would doing a bit of everything. The bigger the company is, then maybe it gets different, and you have people taking care of, like you could have agile coaches and people that would completely take care of the process that you're doing, so that you don't need to focus on this thing or have a big part in it.
Yeah, I see. And what kind of challenges you face in this position?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that I see when, like, as an engineering manager and generally in the management roles compared to the tech roles, is that you don't get instant feedback for your actions. If you're developing software and then, you might have a test and you see, okay, the test, is it green or red? Then you know, okay, did you achieve this or not, or you see the performance, the latency, whatever. Like you can have numbers that would tell you, are you doing a good job or not? But when you get into the management and you work with people, it is different. You don't get this instant feedback. Sometimes you need to work hard to find out, is what you're doing a good thing? Did this work out and or not for the people? Are they motivated or not? Yeah, another challenge is that maybe it depends on the company, but you also need to work together with maybe other engineering managers or different directors, VPs, whatever, then the structure of the company that you align with them. And you kind of, in this case, you have two teams, like you have your team as an engineering manager, and then you have your team with the other engineering managers. And you work differently. Like if people report to you, there's somehow the power dynamics in a way, right? So you need to understand that maybe sometimes you would not get direct feedback because someone might not be sure, is it okay to share this feedback with you because they are reporting to you? So you need to understand this and you need to work with this.
How do you deal with these challenges? I know, like, they are part of the journey.
Yeah, it is part of the journey, but there are also ways to deal with it. Definitely, there are lots of trainings or coaching that one can use. I think also you need to be aware that it is okay to have those challenges and it's not easy and that you can ask for help. I think this maybe also was one of the things that I developed over the time. In the beginning, I was kind of trying to figure out everything on my own. And I thought, yeah, I'm supposed to have an answer for every question. But over the time, I learned that it's not the case. It's okay not to have answers. And it's kind of also okay to have uncertainty, because in this role, there would be a lot of uncertainty in lots of areas. And one need to learn how to deal with uncertainty and how to view it, not actually as a bad thing, but as a good thing. Yeah, being aware of this, using coaching. There are also communities for leaders where people can also share those experiences, maybe within the company or with also external people. So those are all ways to learn this. And I also think it's really important to read books. Some people might think that everything there would come naturally, but it's more or less the same like if you're learning a new programming language or if you're learning a new framework, right? You don't just start using it and assume that you would figure out everything on the way by your own, but you would look for a book or you would look for a course or a mentor. So it's the same with also leadership and management. There are resources that you can use to learn and to develop your skills in this area.
Yeah. And in the very beginning, you mentioned about side projects, and I'm curious to know about them.
Yeah, I had multiple side projects. The last one that I did was an application for Garmin watches. So, yeah, maybe those who don't know, like Garmin, they do watches that would be used in sports. So they can track your running, cycling, swimming, other sports. And yeah, I did like an application for Garmin watches. It kind of came out of a need that I had myself. I owned a watch and I wanted to have a timer that has different modes so that I can use it in my training. And there was not the thing that I was looking for. I couldn't find it. So I thought, yeah, I will build an application myself. And yeah, it's actually still on the Garmin store and people are downloading it.
So it means that you learn the different programming language to be able to implement this application?
Yeah, it's done in a programming language that's called Monkey C. And yeah, I had to basically learn this language and to build the application using it so that I can myself use this application because I had a need for it, basically.
It's nice that the inspiration was that you needed that application and you implemented it. And as you mentioned that there are people who also found it useful and they are using it.
Yeah, exactly. And I like having side projects. And I think it's really something helpful for your career because, yeah, you never know. Actually, I remember in one job interview, I was asked about this specific application. The hiring manager was interested in this, and we had a talk about this application. So it means that also those side projects can help you in your actual career. I actually know also a couple of people who started something similar and then they turned out to be a business and they are now fully working on this. So it's also, I think a good way for one to try out things, to learn more, to kind of fulfill their passion, because also when you're doing this, you're really free to do whatever you want and to try things out and to fail without like affecting any business. And it's quite fun to work on those things.
Yeah. And it will have an impact on others, and it will present opportunities like you mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. And something also that maybe can fit into this category, like open source projects. This can also be a side project contributing in open source project or even maintaining one.
Yeah. Do you have another side projects you would like to tell us about?
Yeah, this like one is still existing. There were some stuff that are no longer existing, but I also did one time like a small Android application. Back in the days, you had the newspapers, and there was a section, they would call it like this day in history. It's like what events happened on this day in history. And yeah, I did an application where basically every day you open the application, you know what events happened on this day. Back then, Android was quite new, so I wanted to learn Android and I wanted to build an app and deliver it, but it doesn't exist anymore. Also, I have one of the side projects that I'm working on right now is, it's not an application, it's like, you can call it a plugin, maybe. It's something for Strava. For those who don't know, Strava is a mobile application that people would use to track their sports. And this project is to build a plugin that can be used in Strava. And the idea of this plugin is to honor the memory of people that died in the current war in Palestine. So it's something that would help in honoring the memory of them, so that you basically, it raises awareness of what's happening, and you would use your activities, like if you're running or cycling, to also raise awareness of what's happening in Palestine.
Yeah, this is really a great initiative. And to wrap up, as the last part of the episode, what advice would you give to someone just starting their journey in tech?
Yeah, I think a couple of things we mentioned during our talk, but I would emphasize them again. Stay curious and be curious in your job. Look for mentors. Don't be shy to ask for help or ask for guidance from others. Try to network and connect with people. And maybe one thing also with coaching and looking for mentor, as I said, I think it's also good, or one should do their homework and start to do the research and try things out. And maybe here one thing I can mention, because I also started seeing this in the last couple of maybe months or year. Nowadays, there is AI, and it can really be helpful in answering question, or in some cases, if you're coding, it can also actually write code for you. And I think this is something great, it's helpful, but for someone who's beginning their journey, sometimes it can actually be harmful, because you need to learn how did this code come from, or what is the reasoning behind this. And if you just ask AI and use the generated code and just move on to the next thing without understanding, you would actually be missing an opportunity to learn. Also can be like bad for the project that you're working on, because AI would generate a code based on the methodologies or the architecture that you have in your application. But sometimes it's actually better to have a different architecture, or to use something completely different. And AI would not suggest this to you from the beginning, because it would use what is there. So yeah, it can also be like a missed opportunity for improving the code. So I think here, if you're starting, it's okay to use those tools and save time with it and so on, and explore with it. But one also should always understand what is this thing, why is it coming from, and always then assess, okay, is this actually the right way of doing it or not? And not just completely rely on it and think, okay, now it's done, I move to the next thing.
Yeah, to avoid also laziness, like on investing some time to learn things deeply. And yeah, it's a really good point. It was nice conversation. Thank you for your time. And thanks for sharing with us about your journey.
Yeah, same for me here. Thanks, Wiam, for having me. I really enjoyed this talk, and thanks for allowing me to share my story. I hope it was useful.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. My pleasure. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
I'm looking forward to our next episode with a new guest and new inspiring story. Until then, stay safe and stay tuned to our next episode. Tic Tac, tackle the inspiration.